Hello everyone. I'm Dr. Manpreet Khemka. I'm a child and adolescent psychiatrist by profession. This is the second video in the series of what we can do as parents to support the emotional well-being of our children during COVID times. And what I'm going to focus on in this talk is a very important aspect in the life of our children, which is the screens, internet. Now, internet has been a saving grace in life of our kids and also adults in the last few months. We know that it's only because of the internet and the connections thereof that they have been able to maintain their education as uninterrupted as possibly could be during these times. Online distant learning, tutoring has been made possible because of internet. It's only through this, the Zoom calls, Skype calls, FaceTimes, that they have been able to maintain contact with their extended families and with their friends. And having that connection with their friends is such an important part in the development of a normal teenager. They have been able to express themselves. So be it through art, music, literature, whatever is the area of interest that they have. In the absence of real kind of physical presence in classes where they are able to self-express, internet has been a broad global platform that they are able to put forth their talent, get feedback, expand their horizons. It also has been a source of entertainment through TV, Netflix, Amazon Prime, and whatnot, video games. In some cases, it has also given them a purpose and a sense of looking beyond themselves. And that is also a very core feature, core developmental task that teenagers go through, having in their identity formation. For example, we know about this movement started by teenagers called March for Life, which has expanded thanks to social media connections. It all seems really good. It all seems very healthy in bringing a positive development in the life of teenagers. But we as parents also need to be aware of what are the dangers involved, depending on the time that our kids are spending on internet. And for us to be able to appreciate it better, we need to have some basic idea. What is the online life of our teenagers like? And as part of this conversation, I'm going to talk about two important areas: social media and video gaming, which makes broadly much of the time that teenagers are spending on internet. So what is social media? So social media is basically websites and apps which help us connect across the globe. And some of these forums are like virtual networks which brings together people that share common interests, be it in music or art, literature, and kind of creates that community, village, where people can connect with each other. They can exchange ideas, they can express themselves, they can comment on other people's work, get feedback in real time. So there is a lot of potential for growth on social media websites if it is constructively and positively used. So some of the websites we are quite aware of. We as adults are active on these websites ourselves. For example, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. But there are a lot more apps that may be very important part of our kids' day-to-day lives that we may not be even aware of. And just how we would like for us to know who are our children's friends, it is important to know what are the websites or apps that consume much of their day, that they have an online presence at. So some of these apps are Snapchat, Tumblr, Twitch, Kick, Discord. The list is endless. And new apps are being launched into the market every single day. So I talked about the advantages of staying connected on social media. It also comes with some risks that we are going to talk next. But just looking at some of the interesting facts, 3/4 of teenagers between the age of 13 and 17 own a smartphone by US demographics. At least 3/4 of these kids who own a smartphone are active pretty much active on at least one social media app, and 70% of them are more active on more than one, sometimes more than five of these apps. So historically, technically, looking at the research, we know that Instagram, Snapchat, any of those apps which are more photocentric, they have more dominance in girls, teenager, female, their lives. Whereas Tumblr and Twitch, some of those apps which allow for the live stream of video gaming, they are more popular with teenage boys. So again, like I said, it's very important to know that these online networking, they are just like virtual friends that your kids are talking for much of their part of their day. It's important for us to know what they're active at. So what are some of the problems that we see are on a rise in teenagers directly related to social media? Now, this really depends on the content that they are being exposed to, the networks that they are associating with, and the time that they are spending on social media. Now, there is a real phenomena called as fear of missing out, FOMO, which basically explain that urge and need that the teenager has to be constantly present on social media in their virtual world. And that means that they are spending excessive amounts of time in this virtual world and neglecting what they need to be doing in their real world. So some of the common problems that we are seeing is obesity, which is because of the sedentary lifestyle, not doing exercise. That is other important area that they need to focus on. We are also seeing declining grades in school because of the lack of effort or the time that they're spending on the education aspect, the homeworks, assignments that they're supposed to do. We are definitely seeing distancing in the social relationships, be it with their friends, family members, because of that constant presence in the virtual world. We are seeing an increase in the sleep problems directly related to it. We are also seeing that as part of growth, kids, they figure out what their hobbies are, what their interests are, what are some of the coping skills that they can utilize when they are in stressful situations. So being constantly on social media is not giving them that avenue to explore some of the interests and hobbies that they may be passionate about. So these are the dangers, these are the negative consequences which are very overtly right in front of our eyes. There may also be some psychological issues that kids are going through because of social media. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about some of the psychological impact of social media on teenagers. And one of the big elephant in the room, what I'm going to talk about is cyberbullying that we as parents need to be aware of. Now, cyberbullying is bullying that can happen over the apps, over these websites that kids are engaging in. It can happen in different shapes and forms. It can happen as derogatory, mean, hurtful text exchanges that may happen one-on-one through personal messages. It can happen on a big wall where many people can watch the insult being caused. Sometimes it includes sharing of embarrassing pictures, embarrassing personal information about a person on a public platform. Sometimes it can also include a group of individuals who are maybe making up or spreading a rumor about an individual. It basically contains the information that can be personally hurtful, it can be embarrassing, humiliating, and can instill sense of fear in the person who is being targeted. Now, how common is it? The demographics are quite variable. Part of it is that it may be underreported. Teenagers, children, even though they may be going through it, they may start that sense of self-doubting. They may start sulking in it by themselves and may have fear of sharing it with their guardian, their parents, teachers, because of the fear that they may actually lose their privileges, they may lose their smartphone or their ability to connect with other people once the grown-ups in the family come to know about it. Now, how is it different than bullying in person? We know of bullying, it has been there for generations, but how is cyberbullying more damaging to the psychological makeup of a child or a teenager? Now, one of my patient that I saw recently put it very, she sadly she put it this way. She said it feels like being in a dark room and not knowing where the next punch is coming. So again, being stuck in that situation, kids feel that there is no escape out. If they are keeping it confidential to themselves, not sharing it with anyone, they are checking the phone multiple times as to the, in context with the insult that was caused, what is the feedback of other people out there. It's kind of they are stuck in that negativity 24/7. So in that way, they have more prolonged exposure, more prolonged damage that could be related to it. Now, anonymous aggressors, they are sometimes they hide behind an identity that we don't know, and that gives it more brutality. They are more disinhibited, more no breaks to it, how far that humiliation can go. Size of audience is big, so you can only imagine as a teenager being insulted in front of the broad group. It is quite damaging to the psyche. There is also that sense of permanence, and what that means is that the content that is shared could be reshared multiple times with multiple platforms, multiple people, and it's going to be there always, and that gives the sense of inability to escape to the person who is being victimized, and in that way it can be more challenging. We know that cyberbullying can definitely increase the risk of depression, anxiety, school refusal. It can, in some cases, it can also increase the risk of suicidal thoughts, especially those who are vulnerable to its impact. So apart from the risk of cyberbullying, there are also some other inherent dangers in directly coming from social media. For example, exposure to inappropriate material. So be it related to sexuality, drug use, alcohol use, substance use, glamorizing a more kind of a criminal behavior in a way. And it normalizes as if it's part of the real world, though it is not. So while it glamorizes these aspects and makes it appear that it's a natural trend in teenagers' life, it does not highlight the consequences that happen as part of natural consequence to those risky and impulsive high-risk activities. So that's one danger. Another important problem that we are seeing is that there is an exposure to a distorted sense of reality, and that's causing not just low self-esteem issues in children, but it's also it gives an idea about a body image to be a certain perfectionist way. In girls, teenagers especially, there has been an increasing trend towards eating disorders or not being comfortable in their own body, and sometimes going to extreme measures to get that perfect photoshopped picture that is idealized version of what they're seeing on the internet. The other risk that the kids can be exposed to is because of their immaturity and not being completely aware of the privacy risks involved. When you're networking or when you're exposed to strangers all across the globe, some of them may be perpetrators, some of them may have predatory tendencies towards them, and teenagers or children, being naive, can fall victim to these people out there, may end up giving their personal information that can not just increase their vulnerability, that can not just put them in danger, but also put their family at risk. So these are some of the things to be aware of, and the next important step is, as parents, what we can do to make sure that our kids are not falling in trap of these dangers. What are some of the things that we can do as parents to protect our children from the dangers in the social media world? So like I said, first most important thing is know the network, know your child's online presence and what and who they are associating with. Educate yourself and your family about the risks involved, and make sure that there is a room for free communication, so that if kids are being targeted there, they can feel free to approach you, seek your advice, seek your guidance, and they don't take it that they would be reprimanded for it, or there will be consequences being put in place if they are being victimized. Next, have clear-cut expectations about the time that they are going to spend on internet, on social media, the expectations you have in real life. It could be as simple as making sure that their homework is being done, their grades are being maintained, some physical exercise, the sleep is not being disturbed. So having these important expectations laid out plain and straight without sugarcoating, that's very important role that you play as a parent, to make sure that they are not exposed to the dangers. Third, most important, parents need to be a role model themselves. So even the media diet, what the parents are being exposed to, the websites that they are active on themselves, and how much time they are spending on it, they need to be a good role model for their children. It's important that you encourage the development of other hobbies, interests, in say varied fields like art, music, literature, reading, so that your child, your teenager, has an avenue to keep themselves busy without becoming too dependent on a virtual world. Fifth, teach your children about online privacy and safety. And broadly, it means having that open communication with them about the digital footprints. So make them aware what they share, the content they share, what they post is going to stay there forever. So make sure that their privacy settings, they are aware of their privacy settings. So on some public media forums, maybe it's a good idea to check that their privacy settings are enabled. Make sure you talk to them that in no circumstances they're supposed to give their full name, address, social security number, details about their family, bank account number to any stranger out there, no matter how convincing or persistent or the other person comes across as. This personal information need not be shared. So make sure that the location being enabled, that's turned off, so that a potential perpetrator is not able to, they are aware that this is a potential danger out there and they can protect themselves and your family. So some simple rules like off time from screen, that has to be a family rule for everybody involved in the family. For example, dinner table, meal times should be gadget free. You cannot be on social media while you're supposed to engage in family meal times together. It should not be promoted in their bedrooms after a certain time frame in the evenings, because that is definitely known to cause significant sleep disruption. And like I said, some ground rules can be laid that what are the basic expectations before they're allowed to spend time on social media. The other important area that defines the online presence of teenagers is the video gaming culture. So now over the last decade or so, there has been much change in the gaming culture that the teenagers are part of. Earlier days, it used to be those arcades, then came the the consoles that you could attach to your TV and play games, then came those handheld devices, and now the games are on smartphones, which can be with you all the time, 24/7, and the kids are spending extensive amount of time on those video games. So now again, as long as it is done in moderation, there is an entertainment value. Based on the game that you're engaging in, there may be some educational purpose in it. Learning may happen from it. Of course, there is a scope for problem solving, the hand-eye coordination. So those are all the good things that can come from video games when we are using it in moderation. But again, depending on the content of the video games, it may start causing problematic behaviors. And there can be different kinds of video games that the teenagers are playing these days. It could be like real-time strategy gaming. It could be role-playing. It could be shooting games where there is sophisticated characters that you are becoming a part of. I have heard some of the parents tell me that the child or the teenager becomes so engrossed in the character that their the demarcation between who they really are and the character is gone. So they are absolutely obsessed in that fantasy world because of spending extensive amount of time with them. And again, sadly, if you look at the culture of video game, it's a multi-million billion industry that's growing up. They are coming up with more engaging, sophisticated storylines that is engrossing and very engaging to the teenagers. But sadly, many of these video games have a negative content and tone to it. For example, focus on the criminal mentality. We might have heard of that grand auto theft and stuff, which kind of glamorizes that criminal behavior in a way, or the killing, or disrespecting the authority, sometimes sexual provocative and obscene gestures, mostly targeting females. There is use of foul language, obscenity in the gaming itself. So as parents, we need to be aware of what are the games that our kids are spending so much time in. Some of the red flags that parents can watch out for when the gaming is becoming more of a disorder, more of a problematic behavior for their child, is when the use is excessive, when they are spending extensive amount of time on it, when they can't control the amount of time that they are spending on it, when there is this strong resistance to family members telling them that they are spending too much time on it, when you're seeing that they are not spending time with the family, their grades are suffering, their sleep is suffering, their other activities, other interests are not developing at all because of the obsession with the gaming. And again, the new research that is coming that is actually supporting that some of the changes that we are seeing in brain are almost similar to what we would see in a person who is addicted to drugs and alcohol. So that's troublesome, that's concerning. Now, are there any predictors that could warn me that my child has more risk of getting into internet gaming disorder? Some of the risk factors are identified, for example, being a male and being impulsive. So there are other psychiatric conditions that may have, we don't know whether it's the cause or the effect, but it may increase the risk of gaming becoming a gaming disorder. For example, previous history of ADHD or autism spectrum, anxiety disorders, social anxiety, social phobias, obsessive compulsive disorders. So again, we don't know whether it's the cause or effect. Is it because the kids are kind of inept in some ways in their social skills, and that's why they're engaging more in that gaming culture, or it's the other way around. But regardless of what it is, it's important for parents to understand that teenage is a crucial stage in the lifespan, in the life development. Many processes are happening during teenage years. For example, the brain maturation, the ability of a teenager to learn how to regulate their emotions, their identity formation, their making sense of the world around them and how they belong in that world, their relationship with their peers and family. So these are very important milestones which are hallmark for teenage development. And when when their mind is absolutely crowded and obsessively engaged in gaming all through the day, these are the areas which can significantly be impaired and not develop. And then it becomes our role as parents how we can intervene so that trajectory can be diverted. So what can we do as parents to make sure that the gaming experience that our children, our teenagers have is more of a productive, entertaining, and not getting into that realm of a problematic behavior? So a couple of suggestions I have. First of all, in preschoolers, avoid giving them gaming as means of entertainment. Secondly, when you are thinking of buying a video game for your child or your teenager, always check what they called as the ESRS rating for that game. And what that means is the electronic software rating. And what that will advise you, it's just like when you're seeing a movie, you see that whether it's age appropriate or not, that rating scale will help you figure out whether the content is age appropriate for your child or not. Sometimes it's helpful to play video games with your child, with your teenager, to get a sense of what their experience is like. What are the online interactions that are happening over the gaming in the networking that they have. It's important to have a set of clear-cut rules and expectations. So about the content and the time that they're spending on it. It's important to monitor their behaviors and how they're interacting with the family members, how their school functioning is, how health conscious they are, so that if you're seeing that red flags, that it's going in that red zone where there is excessive use, you can put some limits to it. I always encourage parents to have video games in a common area in the house, not in their bedrooms, that they can engage in things that you are absolutely clueless what's going on behind the closed doors. So I hope some of this discussion and the tips and tricks that I discussed, that will be educational enough for you, so that you can know the online, the benefits, advantages and disadvantages of it, and keep your family safe and make it more of a healthy, learning, productive experience for yourself and your family. Take care. If there are any questions, concerns, feel free to reach me. I'll be very happy to answer to the best of my capacity. Be safe.